Have you ever felt like you were falling into a bottomless pit? Like the weight of the world was on your shoulders, and every attempt to get up only pushed you deeper into the darkness? Right now, as you watch this video, you might be facing the most challenging phase of your life. Maybe you've lost someone you deeply loved, or your job, or even faith in yourself. Maybe you're questioning whether it's worth continuing the fight, if there's any light at the end of this seemingly endless tunnel. But I want you to know something. For centuries, both Stoic philosophers and a certain Green Jedi Master have taught us that it's precisely in the darkest moments that we discover our true strength. It's when we're at rock bottom that we can finally look up and see the stars. Welcome to this transformative journey. My name is your name, and today we'll explore together 20 profound pieces of advice that unite the ancient wisdom of Stoicism with the timeless teachings of Yoda, the great Jedi Master. Over the next few minutes, you'll discover how to turn your pain into purpose, your anxiety into serenity, and your despair into unwavering strength. This isn't just abstract philosophical advice. It's practical and spiritual tools you can apply immediately to your life, no matter how difficult your current situation may be. You'll learn to accept what you can't control, find peace amidst chaos, and discover that within you lies an ancestral wisdom capable of overcoming any adversity. Prepare for a profound transformation, because from today on, you will never be the same. Even the mighty Yoda acknowledges his limitations and the importance of accepting help when needed. The Stoics, while emphasizing self-reliance, also recognized that humans are naturally social and that wisdom can come from many sources. When you're at rock bottom, pride can be one of the biggest obstacles to your recovery. You might feel that you should be able to overcome everything alone, that asking for help is a sign of weakness, that no one truly understands your situation. But this attitude is counterproductive and unnatural. Accepting help isn't admitting defeat, it's acknowledging that you are part of a larger human community and that collective wisdom can complement your individual strength. This might mean seeking professional therapy, talking to trusted friends, joining support groups, or simply allowing someone to offer you a hug in difficult moments. Stoic practice teaches us that the virtue of justice includes recognizing our interdependence with other human beings. When you accept help with humility and gratitude, you not only facilitate your own healing, but also offer others the opportunity to practice the virtue of compassion. This mutual exchange strengthens the entire social fabric and creates a support network that can sustain you and others in times of need. Remember, even the strongest trees need other trees to form a resilient forest. Lesson 11. Much to learn you still have, yet first unlearn what you have learned. The process of healing and transformation often requires us to abandon beliefs and patterns that no longer serve us. Yoda teaches that sometimes we need to unlearn before we learn, and the Stoics show us that many of our most deeply held convictions can be the source of our suffering. When you're at rock bottom, it's important to question the narratives you tell yourself about your situation. Perhaps you've learned that you don't deserve love, that the world is a dangerous place, that you are inadequate, or that you can't trust anyone. These beliefs may have been helpful at some point in your life, but now they may be limiting your capacity for healing and growth. The Stoic practice of therapeutic philosophy teaches us to examine our judgments and to adopt only those that promote our virtue and well-being. Unlearning isn't easy because our limiting beliefs often feel like absolute truths. But when you open yourself to questioning these truths, you discover that many of them are merely interpretations conditioned by past experience. You may learn that you deserve unconditional love, that the world contains both beauty and pain, that you have extraordinary capabilities waiting to be developed. This process of unlearning and relearning is fundamentally an act of courage. You are choosing to abandon the safety of familiar beliefs to embrace more expansive and nourishing possibilities. Lesson 12. You'll only find what you bring. Your thoughts, your feelings, they're yours. When Luke enters the dark cave on Dagobah, Yoda cautions him that he will only find what he brings with him. This profound lesson teaches us that our external experience is largely determined by our internal state. The Stoics express this through the concept that it's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them. When facing tough times, it's tempting to blame external circumstances for your pain. But the transformative truth is that you have far more power over your experience than you realize. Your thoughts and feelings are yours. They aren't imposed by outside forces, but arise from your interpretation of events. This doesn't mean you're to blame for your pain, but rather that you have the power to significantly influence your experience through your internal choices. When you bring anger to a situation, you find reasons to be angry. When you bring fear, you find threats. But when you bring compassion, curiosity, and courage, you find opportunities for growth and connection. This practice requires constant vigilance over your mental and emotional states. Before entering any challenging situation, ask yourself, what am I bringing to this experience? How can I choose thoughts and feelings that empower me instead of limiting me? This awareness transforms you from a victim of circumstance into an active co-creator of your reality. Lesson 13. Adventure, excitement? A Jedi doesn't crave those things. Peace, knowledge, serenity, those are what matter. Modern culture teaches us to constantly seek external stimulation to feel alive and valuable. But Yoda reminds us that true fulfillment comes from deeper internal qualities. The Stoics shared this perspective, teaching that genuine happiness, eudaimonia, doesn't depend on external circumstances, but on cultivating virtues like wisdom, courage, justice, and self-control. When you're down, it can be tempting to seek dramatic distractions or intense experiences to escape the pain. But these temporary fixes often leave you emptier than before. The peace Yoda mentions isn't the absence of challenges, but the presence of an inner calm that can coexist with any external circumstance. This peace is cultivated through daily practices of mindfulness, reflection, and alignment with your deepest values. The knowledge he values isn't just information, but experiential wisdom about how to live virtuously. Serenity is the natural fruit of accepting what can't be changed while acting decisively on what can be influenced. When you orient your life towards these internal qualities, you discover you possess an inexhaustible source of contentment that's independent of external circumstances. This isn't a denial of life, but a deeper, more sustainable way to live it, one that remains stable even when everything around you is in turmoil. Lesson 14. Judging me by my size, are you? You shouldn't, for my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is. The Stoics teach us that our true strength doesn't come from our physical appearance, social status, or external resources, but from our connection to the universal reason that governs the cosmos. Yoda, small in stature, exemplifies how true strength transcends physical limitations. When you're down, it's common to feel diminished, weakened, unable to face the challenges ahead. But this perception is based on a limited understanding of what constitutes true power. Stoic strength comes from internal discipline, the ability to maintain virtue regardless of circumstances, and the understanding that you are part of something infinitely larger. This strength can't be measured by external metrics. It manifests in your ability to remain compassionate when others are cruel, to maintain hope when the situation seems hopeless, to find meaning even in suffering. When you connect with this inner strength, you realize it's inexhaustible. No matter how many times you're knocked down, there's always a wellspring of energy within you that can help you rise again. This strength grows stronger with use. Each time you choose virtue over ease, each time you respond with wisdom instead of reacting impulsively, you're developing spiritual muscles that become more resilient and powerful. Never underestimate this strength residing within you. It's your most reliable and powerful ally. Lesson 15. No different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned. When Luke doubts his ability to lift his ship from the swamp, Yoda corrects him, explaining that there's no fundamental difference between lifting a rock and lifting a ship, only in the mind. The Stoics had a similar understanding. Many of our limitations are self-imposed by our beliefs about what's possible. When facing seemingly impossible challenges, the first battle isn't against external circumstances, but against your own mental limitations. You may have learned that certain problems are too big to solve, that certain changes are impossible to make, that you're too small to make a difference. But these are just mental constructs artificially limiting your potential. The Stoic practice teaches us that the difference between the possible and the impossible often exists only in our perception. When you remove self-imposed mental barriers, you discover capabilities you didn't know you possessed. This doesn't mean you can do literally anything, but that your real limitations are far smaller than your perceived limitations. The process of unlearning mental limitations requires courage and patience. You need to systematically question your beliefs about your capabilities and be willing to experiment with possibilities you previously dismissed as unrealistic. When you do this, you often discover that the only real obstacle between you and your goals are the barriers you've built in your own mind. Lesson 16. There is no emotion, there is peace. There is no ignorance, there is knowledge. There is no passion, there is serenity. This Jedi Code teaching, echoed by Yoda, may seem contradictory at first glance, but contains a profound wisdom that resonates with Stoic philosophy. It's not about denying emotions or passions, but transcending them through understanding and practice. The Stoics teach us that destructive emotions, which they called passions, arise from faulty judgments about what is truly good or bad. When you're down in the dumps, you may be overwhelmed by intense emotions: anger, fear, sadness, despair. These emotions are natural and should be acknowledged, but they don't need to control your actions. The peace Yoda mentions isn't the absence of feelings, but the presence of an inner calm that can coexist with any emotion. This peace is cultivated through detached observation of your internal states. You learn to watch your emotions like a compassionate observer instead of being completely identified with them. Knowledge refers to practical wisdom about how to live virtuously, while serenity is the natural state that arises when you align your actions with your deepest values. In practice, this means you can feel sadness without being destructive. You can experience fear without being paralyzed. You can feel anger without being violent. You become the master of your emotions, not their slave. Lesson 17. A Jedi uses the Force for knowledge and defense, never for attack. This teaching contains profound wisdom on how to use our inner strength constructively. The Stoics teach us that true strength of character manifests in the ability to respond to adversity with virtue rather than reacting with destructive impulses. When you're down in the dumps, you might feel like attacking, either attacking other people you blame for your situation or attacking yourself with cruel self-criticism. But this approach only perpetuates the cycle of suffering. The defensive use of inner strength means protecting your peace of mind, your integrity, and your values even when others try to violate them. This might mean setting healthy boundaries, refusing to participate in toxic drama, or simply choosing not to react. Using the Force for knowledge means using your difficult experiences as opportunities for learning and growth. Each challenge becomes a chance to develop virtues like patience, compassion, courage, and wisdom. When you use your strength in this way, it multiplies and purifies. You become a source of stability and wisdom for yourself and others instead of a source of conflict and destruction. This approach isn't passive. It requires courage and determination, but it's a kind of courage that builds instead of destroys, that heals instead of wounds, that illuminates instead of darkens. When you connect with this inner strength, you realize it's inexhaustible. No matter how many times you're knocked down, there's always a wellspring of energy within you that can help you rise again. This strength grows stronger with use. Each time you choose virtue over ease, each time you respond with wisdom instead of reacting impulsively, you're developing spiritual muscles that become more resilient and powerful. Never underestimate this strength residing within you. It's your most reliable and powerful ally. Lesson 15. No different. Only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned. When Luke doubts his ability to lift his ship from the swamp, Yoda corrects him, explaining that there's no fundamental difference between lifting a rock and lifting a ship, only in the mind. The Stoics had a similar understanding. Many of our limitations are self-imposed by our beliefs about what's possible. When facing seemingly impossible challenges, the first battle isn't against external circumstances, but against your own mental limitations. You may have learned that certain problems are too big to solve, that certain changes are impossible to make, that you're too small to make a difference. But these are just mental constructs artificially limiting your potential. The Stoic practice teaches us that the difference between the possible and the impossible often exists only in our perception. When you remove self-imposed mental barriers, you discover capabilities you didn't know you possessed. This doesn't mean you can do literally anything, but that your real limitations are far smaller than your perceived limitations. The process of unlearning mental limitations requires courage and patience. You need to systematically question your beliefs about your capabilities and be willing to experiment with possibilities you previously dismissed as unrealistic. When you do this, you often discover that the only real obstacle between you and your goals are the barriers you've built in your own mind. The real villain in your situation may not be what it seems at first glance. Perhaps you're blaming other people for problems that are partly your responsibility. Or perhaps you're taking all the blame for situations that are beyond your control. Perhaps the real obstacle isn't an external person or circumstance, but a self-destructive thought pattern you've repeated for years. Mental clarity is developed through practices like meditation, mindful reflection, and what the Stoics called self-examination, an honest and compassionate analysis of your own thoughts and motivations. When your mind is clear, you can see your situation with greater objectivity, identify the true causes of your problems, and make wiser decisions about how to proceed. This clarity doesn't arise instantly, but is cultivated gradually through the consistent practice of detached mental observation. Lesson 19. That is why you fail. You do not believe. The belief that Yoda speaks truth isn't blind hope or forced positive thinking, but a deep conviction based on understanding his true nature and capabilities. Stoics teach us that our inner strength is rooted in virtue, and that virtue cannot be destroyed by external circumstances. When you're at rock bottom, you may have lost faith in yourself, in life, or in the possibility of things getting better. This lack of belief becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. When you don't believe you can recover, you stop taking the necessary actions for your healing. Stoic belief is based on reason and experience, not fantasy. You believe in your ability to grow because you've grown in the past. You believe in your ability to withstand adversity because you've overcome it before. You believe in your ability to find meaning because you found it in previous difficult times. This belief is strengthened through the daily practice of small acts of courage and virtue. Every time you choose compassion over bitterness, every time you persevere when it would be easier to give up, every time you learn something new about yourself, you are building evidence of your own capacity. Genuine belief isn't a feeling, but a conviction based on accumulated evidence of your own strength and potential. When you develop this fact-based belief, it becomes unshakable because it's grounded in the reality of who you truly are. Lesson 20. Wars don't make one great. Greatness is defined by how one treats others when they have nothing left to give. This final lesson synthesizes all the Stoic and Jedi wisdom. True greatness isn't measured by external victories, but by how you maintain your humanity and virtue even in the toughest moments. When you're at rock bottom, when you feel you have nothing left to offer the world, it's precisely at this moment that your true strength of character can shine most brightly. Stoics teach us that the most precious virtues, compassion, courage, integrity, wisdom, don't depend on external resources to manifest. In fact, they often become purer and more powerful when everything else has been stripped away. When you have no money, you can still be generous with your attention and kindness. When you have no power, you can still be courageous in your convictions. When you have no certainties, you can still be wise in your choices. This is the greatness that truly matters, not the greatness that impresses others, but the greatness that honors the dignity of human life. When you maintain your compassion even when you're hurting, when you offer encouragement even when you're discouraged, when you choose love even when surrounded by hate, you are demonstrating the highest form of human strength. This greatness doesn't need to be recognized by others to be real and valuable. It's your gift to the world and to yourself, a declaration that, regardless of circumstances, you choose to honor the noblest aspects of human nature. We've reached the end of this transformative journey, and you now carry with you 20 pieces of advice that can completely change your perspective on your current challenges. Each of these teachings is a tool you can use immediately, a light that can guide you through the darkest moments. Remember that being at rock bottom isn't a condemnation, it's a sacred opportunity to discover strength you didn't even know you possessed. The wisdom of Yoda and the Stoics teach us that we are far more resilient and powerful than we imagine. Your current circumstances, however difficult, are temporary. Your capacity to grow, to learn, to find meaning, and to maintain your dignity, these are permanent. You possess within you an inexhaustible source of strength, wisdom, and compassion. This strength doesn't depend on external approval, cannot be diminished by past failures, and cannot be destroyed by present circumstances. Starting today, you can begin applying these lessons. You can choose to accept what you cannot control while acting decisively on what you can. You can observe your fears without being dominated by them. You can connect with your inner strength, no matter how small you may feel. You can practice patience with yourself, honor your losses, and learn to let go of what you cannot hold on to. You can remember your luminous nature, accept help when needed, and unlearn beliefs that limit your potential. Every moment is a new opportunity to choose virtue, to grow in wisdom, to demonstrate the greatness that naturally exists within you. No matter how many times you've fallen, you can always choose to rise again. No matter how dark the path may seem, you can always choose to be a light to yourself and to others. This transformative journey is sacred, and you are not alone in it. Millions of people throughout history have faced similar challenges and emerged stronger and wiser. You are part of this lineage of spiritual warriors who have chosen to grow through adversity, who have transformed pain into wisdom, who have discovered that rock bottom can be the launching point for the greatest heights. If this video brought any light to your journey, share it with someone who might benefit from these words. Leave a comment sharing which piece of advice resonated most with you. Your experience may inspire others facing similar challenges. And if you want to continue receiving content that nourishes your soul and strengthens your spirit, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Remember, you're not at rock bottom because you're weak. You're there because you're strong enough to survive this and wise enough to learn from it. Your journey back to the light has already begun. Trust the process, trust yourself, and trust the strength that's always been inside you. May the force be with you, always.